We as Republicans and our elected leaders must do more than criticize and complain.
Personality and celebrity just aren't going to get it done. We can see that.
They don't want chaos. They want strength and stability and unity. We didn't have that.
In times like these, there is no substitute for victory.
Republican potential presidential candidates making their pitch to the Republican Jewish Coalition Convention in Las Vegas. Welcome back to State of the Union. My panel joins me now. Brad, let me start with you. President Trump, former President Trump's announcement this week does not really, at least from where I sit, does not seem to have deterred a number of individuals who might run, at least based on those clips. What do you think?
No, open primaries are the only kind we have on the Republican side. He will have opposition. I think the real question is whether he ends up with multiple opposition or just Governor DeSantis of Florida. I think there's going to be a pretty big move by major donors to try to coalesce around Governor DeSantis. I think other people are going to toy with it and consider it. He probably can't get in till July, probably shouldn't get in till July.
Why?
He's got a legislative session to go through. And, the American people don't really want all-time campaigning. They just finished the midterms. I think they want a break. Politicians, if they're smart, will give them a break. And I think that if I was Governor DeSantis, I wouldn't get in anytime soon.
And Sarah, what do you think? Because one of the things that's interesting is hardly any of those individuals mentioned Donald Trump by name, even though clearly they were talking about him one way or the other. Chris Christie called them out on that in an interview, saying there's a number of people who are considering running for president who still treat him like Voldemort. Like who shall not be named. I think that fails the leadership test. You're going to run against him. Say his name. You think he did something wrong. Say his name. What do you think?
Yeah, I do think that people need to get into the race if they want to take him on, and they're going to have to eventually attack him. I think right now, though, the strategy that you're seeing from someone like Ron DeSantis to not take the bait, not call him out by name, and to kind of not engage is smart, because that's what Trump wants. He wants to get under his skin, and he wants to get the attention and, kind of get the clicks. But I think that for right now, it's best to not engage with Trump.
But I think with Trump back on Twitter, help us all.
He hasn't tweeted yet.
I noticed that. But it's going to almost be impossible not to, because he's going to engage with them. So is Ron DeSantis really going to have the ability to hold back? And I think that's going to be true for anybody who's thinking about getting in. That is the way Donald Trump works. He will engage you, and then it's are you really going to stand by and stand back and just get attacked?
They're all going to get their own nicknames.
Yes.
Right. I think Pompeo said something about that.
Right. And I can't wait to see Mike Pence's nickname. But what struck me just watching that is how many people who are standing up there, potentially putting their name out on the ballot for 2024, are complicit with what happened under the Trump administration and complicit with January 6th. How are they going to run in a primary against Donald Trump and position themselves as being different, better, less divisive than Donald Trump? They were right there.
The elections are about the future. Voters tend to look out the windshield, not in the rearview mirror for the elections.
Except for this past election.
I think we know Donald Trump's a pretty good predator in campaigns, right? He's not always good at picking his person, but he's good at tearing someone else down. But he also has a different opponent this time. It's not just those people who are running. Some of it's exhaustion, even within the Republican primary. And I think
exhaustion with him?
With him. I think the one thing he has to be concerned with is he's entered very, very early, and he has to have the attention span and the tolerance of the Republican base, who might be a little bit worn out right now. I don't know that I would have entered as soon as he did, and I don't know that I would run this thing at Mach 10 the whole time.
Well, he obviously thought that he was going to be announcing on the heels of a victory.
Yeah.
Right? Oops, that didn't happen. That red wave never manifested. And I think the other challenge that they're going to have with a Republican House-led, Congress that is just hell-bent on investigations. That is all about the past, right? Hunter Biden, COVID is going to be one. How COVID started is one of them. That's all about looking about the past. That's all about dividing this country. That is not about dealing with inflation. That is not about bringing the country together. And if you're running for president, you're supposed to be the person who can be the boss of the whole Republican Party.
Hang on. When Democrats took over the House in 2018, within 5 months, they had 14 different committees investigating the Republican administration. It's a legitimate congressional function, and that's what's going to happen.
I just want to interrupt just to show people what we're talking about here, because these are some of the topics that House Republicans have talked about that they want to launch oversight investigations. There's the southern border, the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Justice Department in terms of the FBI seizing the materials from Mar-a-Lago, and then Hunter Biden. So I just wanted to
And there is absolutely a legitimate congressional function to provide oversight of the executive branch. However, just take Republicans for their word, the new Republican majority in the House for their word. This is about revenge politics. They're doing this to weaken Joe Biden. That's what they have said on the record. And I think I think we would all agree that they need to be really careful here and not overreach, because ultimately that list is not going to weaken Joe Biden. It is going to strengthen Joe Biden because they are not paying attention to what the American people told them.
Well, James Comer, as chair of the Oversight Committee, has said he's not interested in investigating the Mar-a-Lago raid. However, he is interested in investigating whether the Department of Justice coordinated with outside actors when it declared people who go to school boards to voice their opinions to be domestic terrorists. That's a legitimate function. We also have had 0 hearings in the U.S. House looking into the botched withdrawal of Afghanistan. That's a legitimate oversight function. And I think once you see this Congress take shape, you're going to see that.
There have been hearings. I just think that this is the tail wagging the dog. And, Kevin McCarthy, if he becomes Speaker, is not going to be able to control his caucus. And we know, because we've all been through this before, what's going to happen. They're going to make a mockery of the system and completely overreach, but they're going to be investigating someone. They're investigating Joe Biden. The American people do not think that he is a crook. They do not think that he is corrupt.
That's right. So Sarah, I want to bring you in here because, look, I agree with Brad that there is a legitimate oversight function of Congress, and it's a shame that parties never investigate their own party in the White House, whether it's Republicans investigating Trump or Democrats investigating Biden. That said, I think one of the things Stephanie's talking about is when Republicans controlled the House in the 90s, there were some really bizarre, you don't remember, but there were some really bizarre moments. So the Congressman Dan Burton from Indiana remember this? He was looking into the Vince Foster and suicide, and he fired his gun into a pumpkin to see. I mean, there was some weird stuff, and the question is, which Republicans are going to be in charge of these investigations? Is it going to be the more serious, sober Republicans, McCall, Turner, et cetera, or is it going to be the Marjorie Taylor Greenes?
I do think it's going to be more of the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, because I think that to secure the gavel, McCarthy is obviously making concessions to people in the far right, like Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's why you're seeing her come out so forceful and defending him and pushing him. And, clearly he's promised her something, and I think you're going to see her. I think it's been reported that she wants to be on oversight. So you're going to see her probably get a plum position on a very important committee that's going to have a lot of power. I do think there is legitimacy to some of these investigations, to Brad's point. But I did think it was strange that House Republicans came out of the gate saying, we're going to investigate Hunter Biden, when I think there are so many other issues that voters want to see them tackle, like the border crisis, like inflation, gas prices, you name it. So I did think that was an odd strategy.
Yeah, to be continued. We'll have a lot of committee hearings to talk about. I promise you'll get to weigh in, Karen.